My name is Robert Lacey, and I am a member of the North Fork Band of Mono Indians. Sitting Bull, who is from the Teton Sioux Nation, was quoted saying, "I am a red man." If the Great Spirit had desired me to be a white man, he would have made me so in the first place. In your heart, he put certain wishes and plans. In my heart, he put other and different desires. In the sight of the Great Spirit, every man is good. It is not necessary that eagles should be crows. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you would attend an educational institution where schooling was secondary to learning menial and outdated vocational skills, where you were verbally and physically abused for speaking your native tongue, where teachers would molest students on a regular basis, where it was wrong to be what you are. These were the standards of assimilation in the Native American boarding schools. Assimilation is the process in which a person or persons acquire the social and psychological characteristics of another group. Many of my family and friends were forced into these horrific institutions of education. And even though 2 generations separate me from this assimilation, I still feel the repercussions from isolation, from ceremonial traditions and cultural practices, withdrawn from my language. I called my family up on the res to gather more research for this, and when I asked them about it, they would not comment. The disturbances caused by the Indian boarding schools is a problem that must be solved through the process of healing in order to decrease the suffering from this historical trauma. I have a short video. Upon gathering research for this, I did an interview with a Native American teacher, and so a lot of the statistics weren't gathered for the first 20 years of the boarding schools, and some of them were falsified, others were destroyed, and others were lost. This is a short clip on what was happening in the Native American boarding schools.
Colonel Richard Pratt was the first to found an Indian boarding school in the 1870s. Pratt's goal was to assimilate American Indians into white American culture with the philosophy of kill the Indian, save the man. Boarding schools quickly sprang up throughout the country, and Indian children were taken from their families and reservations, sometimes by force, in order to attend these schools. At the schools, Native American children were strictly prohibited from practicing any part of their native culture, including wearing long hair or native dress, speaking in their native tongue, and practicing native religion. Students were often abused and humiliated in order to enforce these policies. Discipline and living conditions were notoriously harsh. Students were taught menial labor trades, such as carpentry or housekeeping. Often, basic education like grammar and arithmetic were secondary. In 1934, legislation was enacted to help prevent further cultural dissemination in Indian boarding schools. By 1960, these assimilationist schools were gone. Federally funded boarding schools for American Indians still exist today, but work to promote Native culture instead of suppressing it. This has been another Humanities in a Minute.
These are just some of the off-reservation boarding schools that were out there. These were just the major ones. There was over 500 Indian boarding schools altogether. According to a magazine columnist from Amnesty Magazine, her name is Andrea Smith, and she's from the Cherokee Nation. She wrote that before colonization, Native American violence against women, children, and elders was virtually non-existent. Today, sexual abuse and violence is in the epidemic proportions, along with alcoholism and suicide. The catastrophic nature of these events was not that it was actioned against Native Americans in general, but that it was targeted towards innocent kids. Most of the children were between the ages of 5 to 12. The negative psychological and cultural impact is still hindering Native American society. And according to the NPR.org, in 1969, a document called the Kennedy Report declared that Indian education to be a national tragedy. Although no actions can be made to reverse the trauma caused by the Indian boarding schools, a solution can be easily made through the process of healing. There are now numerous programs and workshops available on the reservations and in the urban areas to help deal with the suffering of the Native American people. A lot that attended the boarding schools have to deal with the post-traumatic stress disorder. So they offer treatment for that, along with behavioral health therapy. Mothers and Fathers of Tradition is teaching parents traditional values of the way to raise their children. And the Sons and Daughters of Tradition is teaching the young generation how they should be as Native American children. In Canada, they also had these Indian boarding schools, and they experienced this similar anguish that we did. The Canadian government, a few years back, executed a formal apology towards the Canadian Indians, giving them an optimal chance at full recovery of healing. With all the time and resources spent on foreign situations, a lot of the times domestic affairs are overlooked, and it's incapacitating the healing of our nation. In the section 8113 of the Department of Defense Appropriations Act of 2010, it was stated that they were going to, well, allegedly were going to start reconciliation with the Native American people. But it is now seeming to be just another broken treaty by the federal government to the Native American people. So to reiterate, the American Indian boarding school's crippling effect on the Native American society can only be mended through the process of healing to alleviate the distress of this historical trauma. There is a petition going out for an official apology from the American government to the Native American people for the disturbances of the Indian boarding schools. There's two websites that you can go to. One's whitebison.org, and the other one is petitionthesite.com. I have made it one step easier for you guys. I actually have the petition here with me, and if you want, you can sign it after the class. I've already signed this a few months back at one of the powwows, and I'm kind of unofficially organized with White Bison in their Wellbriety teachings. In the very near future, I'm going to be starting it's called a Mending Broken Hearts workshop, and it goes with grief, loss, and the historical trauma, and how to deal with the pain that was caused. So I urge you to sign this petition, and I'm not asking as a Native American, I'm asking as a person of humanity. Thank you.